this isn't just a global talking point for them or a global issue. It's an issue that is impacting their constituents as we speak on the ground. And again, I want to stress, what we're seeing, I don't see how this is beneficial to the migrants, to the people that we're shuttling all over the place. Talking about, well, maybe we'll house them in Rikers, maybe we'll house them in a school gymnasium. I can't wait to hear what good idea comes up next. How is that a humane policy? Just because it makes us feel good before, it is turned into a crisis. It's a crisis of political failure, of a failure of leadership, and a crisis of our own doing. And there still doesn't seem to be a real plan coming, at least that I've heard. Again, the mayor's plan is to get them out of the city, apparently, and shuttle them to other places unknown, out of sight, out of mind for him. And for the governor, though, no real plan that I have heard yet. And again, use the power of the governor. She's a Democratic governor, and you have a Democratic president. And as much as I didn't want either of those things, the reality is, use that. If it was a Republican governor and a Republican president, you can bet your butt that's all they'd be saying is, where are the Republicans? They're failing to act. They're failing to unify. And that's what's happening here. She needs to be able to get the president on the phone and say, this is a huge problem for my state, and it's directly tied to a failure at the federal level. That is the genesis of this. And then obviously you have the other policies here in the state that we talked about. So with that, certainly happy to take, we'll do on-topic questions. So I don't know that I can speak to the framework you're referring to. Yeah, I think that misses the point for me, because why do we have to? If the more we take, the more are going to show up. We cannot handle it. I want to be very clear. The state of New York can't financially handle this. Period. I want to get into this. Can they go here? Maybe we can build a retreat for them in the Adirondacks, or maybe we can build a ship. That misses the point. These folks we cannot handle it. If you're pushing the city of New York with all the crime, with 8 million people, with COVID, with everything they've been through, and this is pushing under the breaking point, you can bet your butt Rockland and Orange and every other place is going to be pushed to the breaking point even sooner. This underscores we have an administration in Washington, D.C. that is turning a blind eye, as Senator Rolison said, to the border issue. They want to pretend that it's not happening because they're so politically weak that they can't even say there's a problem here. It's not about brown people. It's not about Mexicans or South America. It's about we can't handle it. Every country deserves to be able to protect themselves. Every state can protect themselves. Every community should be able to provide some sort of law and order and protection and public safety. And that includes for the people who are coming across the border, and we can't even do that. So the idea that we're just going to shuttle them around, I think that's where our conference, maybe certainly, is different from my colleagues. We're saying this is enough. Mayor Adams has said it's enough, and I'm saying it's enough. But we need leadership from the governor and others to help make that happen.
So there's some type of good cop, bad cop routine where Mayor Adams is quite vociferously criticized by the administration, and the governor has taken a much more amicable approach. Do you think she's been too soft on Biden?
I will say that if it were Rob Ortt, I would have been a little more strident with the president. Look, everyone has their own style, Zach. I mean, everyone has their own way of doing things. Senator Rolison's certainly different, probably to his benefit than Rob Ortt. But the reality is, you don't have to attack the president, but I don't even know that she's publicly asked for a meeting or that she's even said, Mr. President, we need you to reinstitute Title 42. Like, it doesn't have to be in a negative context, but there's been nothing. There's been silence on a policy that we've seen coming. I must have heard about Title 42 just on my social media feed for months. And I know we had a late budget and a lot of other things going on and judges being denied and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is someone's got to make time to be able to address this issue when it affects your largest city in your state. And again, Mayor Adams, he's, as any former mayor knows, you're at the bottom. There's no one else to go to, so you might get a little more vocal, but they talk, Democratic mayor, Democratic governor, so for her to not make any plea about Title 42, to not ask the federal government publicly or have a meeting in the White House, and if she did, if the president ignored her, that's even worse in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think it's a failure certainly from the president. But again, if she hasn't made that overture, meeting with Hakeem Jeffries is great, but only the president is going to be able to do this, and that's where she needs to be talking to.
Did you have conversations with the governor about Title 42 at all?
We had conversations about this issue at large a couple months ago at a private breakfast, but that was obviously a lot of things have gotten worse since that time.
One right here.
Basically, you guys have a couple weeks left in session. As your colleagues across the aisle often say that they have a supermajority. Realistically, where can this legislation go? What can be done in the short amount of time before?
Look, I've seen Albany move fast when it wants to. It obviously, I've seen the governor, I've seen the executive move fast when they want to. They push through judicial nominees at lightning speed when they needed to. When there's a budget deal, the bills just start falling from the sky, right? And we're doing it. So we can, if this is really a crisis, and if we recognize that it's a crisis, then there needs to be legislative action. And I have every confidence that these bills, which are good bills, solid bills, should be able to be moved through the Senate, certainly, within the time frame that we have left for us. And by the way, we've been called back before. And if this really is a crisis and we don't get it done, then we should get called back. And if that's what needs to happen, we'll all come back to pass legislation that protects our local communities and deals with this crisis.
Last question, Jimmy.
At this point, I have not.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So is the assembly legislation they announced this morning, the four bills, the same legislation you're pushing, or you have different ideas?
So I think we have similar ideas, maybe different language or different bills on how to get there. I have every reason to believe we can probably synthesize those efforts, either get same as is in the assembly for both sets of bills, but I know both my colleagues will be talking to their assembly counterparts, some in Slater, some in Marr, as well as I'll be talking to the leader to try to come up with maybe a synthesized package here. But I think the rapidity of which some of these events have happened since late last week is why we're kind of pushing out bills, maybe not completely in unison, but with the same intent.
Earlier this week, the governor said that she supported expediting waiving the 180-day waiting period for approval for migrant. Where do you stand on that?
So my concern when I hear that is we need to ask ourselves, why is it 180 days to approve for them to work? It's because we have to go through a security vetting process because we don't know who these people are, if they should stay here, what their background is, have they been convicted of crimes in their countries of origin. We need to know all that. So I know what she's trying to do to get them working and get them, but I don't see any way you can expedite the work process without expediting the background process and the vetting process, and that concerns me. And it should that would be even more concerning to the communities that they're going to. That now you're going to have people there that we also stepped up the expediting the background process, the vetting process. So we really don't know who these people really are and if they should be here, if they're dangerous, if they're not. So I get what she's trying to do, but I don't know how you can do it without compromising the vetting and the security piece of that.
Is there anything besides Title 42 lapsing as an issue? You say the issues at the source.
Sure.
Most of the 60,000 migrants in New York City supposedly got here before the lapse.
Sure.
So what else would the federal government do to correct the problem at the source?
I mean, I would say just the immigration issue writ large, but the border as it is. The border, before Title 42, you had immigrants pouring across the border. We've seen the increase in people crossing, seeking asylum, what have you, and that's why they're ending up in states like Texas, in Arizona, in Florida, and then those governors are saying, well, we can't handle these folks, and there seems to be no real effort. Secretary Mayorkas, even in front of Congress, could not say the word crisis He was unable to say the word crisis, even though every other elected official that I see and talk to and hear from on TV says this is a crisis, Democrats and Republicans. So I think with the failure of any coherent strategy or an acknowledgement that the border is porous and people are pouring across into states for a long time that are spending all kinds of resources and lack the ability now to control it. So what happens? Now they're being shipped to other states, in our case, New York. So I think there needs to be, I would say there needs to be a new Director of Homeland Security. I think Secretary Mayorkas has been a complete and abject failure. There's no other way to put it. He can't say crisis, but I can say failure. He has been an abject failure, and I think we need someone to get in there who understands their job is to protect our southern states, protect our border. Yes, people are going to come across, and they should do so in some sort of verified way that brings security and confidence to Americans and to the southern states specifically. But I think, that would be, to your point about before Title 42. My concern with the expiration of Title 42, it's going to make it worse. This is going to exacerbate an already tenuous and challenging situation, and you're going to see more people now coming across. And you know what? And I mean this. Anyone who puts themselves at great risk, and there's a lot of people that do this. Obviously, there's no doubt some bad actors or people who are running from bad actions. But there's a lot of people there who are looking for a better life. And that's written into the American DNA. We all empathize with that. But there is a way that this needs to be done, and this is not it. Thank you guys very much.